Stop.
Welcome to Clare's Court Isolation Tracks with me, Mr. Gravett.
And me, Mr. Richards. The point of this is at least weekly we'll be interviewing one of your teachers and ask them to talk about the music that's had an impact on their lives. We'll also ask them to pick between 5 and 8 tracks and talk about why they hold a significance. We'll get them to talk about their personal histories and interests along the way. And any resemblance to a current radio show is purely coincidental.
Music has the power to lighten the mood and connect us with deep-rooted emotions. In times like these, it's an opportunity to escape the reality and immerse yourself in one of life's greatest creative outlets. The first track you will hear is the guest's choice of intro music, and throughout the interview you will hear clips of their favourite tunes. So, without further ado, today's guest is Mr. Wareing. Nice to see you. Nice of you to join us on our inaugural first broadcast of Isolation Tracks from Clare's Court. It's nice to see that you've donned a suit and a jacket. In fact, it's fair to say, Mr. Richards, wouldn't you say that this is the smartest we have ever seen?
I thought he was getting married again.
I've never worn this before, by the way.
I assume isolation hasn't driven you to divorce yet, Mr. Wareing.
Not yet. No, not yet.
That's pleasing to hear. Well, I hope you appreciate the attire that Mr. Richards and I have decided to don for the
Very nice. Very nice.
We thought something colourful and artistic would work well for the given the special guest that we have on this evening.
Thanks very much. Thanks for making the effort.
And I know that you've got a nice picture in the background there. Would you like to start off by just giving us a little explanation about that one?
Oh, a picture in the back. So that is a picture my dad painted of Joe and Ethan on the beach in South Africa. So I thought it'd be quite nice as a backdrop. I do talk a little bit about my time in South Africa and my dad and how he influenced me and music-wise and art-wise. So I thought it might be quite fitting to have that in the background. So, yeah.
Great. Well, maybe this is a good time to get straight into it then. So your first song, we've just heard Pixies, Where Is My Mind? So do you want to give us a little explanation about that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the place where I started, but it was a good, it's a nice intro track. So it's basically, it's very simple. It's very simple memory. It just reminds me of driving around on the south coast of South Africa, where I grew up on the east coast, with my friends and the music playing. I got into the Pixies. A friend of mine had an older brother who was into really cool music, much cooler than we were. And we kind of stumbled across his music and we started listening to it. And it was Pixies and it was the Flaming Lips as well. And it was those sorts of bands. And the thing I liked about the Pixies was it was quite raw. It was kind of, if you've ever listened to the albums Doolittle and Surfer Rosa, which is the one that Where Is My Mind's on, you know, he screams in some bits and he's got, there's really loud guitar, really rough guitar. And then there's some really nice, quiet, gentle guitar as well. So it was just a very odd kind of mix of music that I listened to. So I just really loved it straight away, fell in love with the Pixies and Where Is My Mind was like their most famous song. So yeah, it just kind of reminds me of that time really. So yeah.
It reminds me of the end of Fight Club. You know, the end of Fight Club when
it is in the end of Fight Club.
Kind of falling down, it just clicks in. It's the most sort of perfectly timed bit of music, bit of film. I love it.
Yeah, it's in. Is it in Train Spotting as well? It might be. I don't know if it is. I think it might be in. It's been used in quite a few films. It's a great little intro track, isn't it? It's brilliant.
I hadn't realised how good that was when you said you wanted it as your opening music. I thought, oh, that's a good song. But then when we played it, I thought, oh, this is a really good entrance music. You can see you walking into something sort of proud. I thought it was a really good choice.
An opportunity to use that as an intro in some part of my life. So thanks.
It's one of those songs that's played much better loud as well. You know, we just turn it up. Like,
I have to say, there's quite a lot of songs that are best turned up, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way I remember it. Sort of turned up loud, driving in the car with that music going on. That's a memory for me, being kind of about 15, 16, and yeah, it kind of sums up that time for me. So
what I love about this concept and the idea of talking about songs that have influenced you is that nostalgic element, that everything you listen to reminds you of an occasion or a place or a time in your life. And I think that's such an awesome thing to remember about how the power of music has.
I found it really hard to narrow down 8 songs, actually, because there's so many, isn't there?
Yeah,
It's
and
that lyric in Fight Club as well. It's like, you met me at a very strange time.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a pretty strange time. We should say this is completely unscripted. We knew what songs Mr. Wareing was going to put forward, and we've sort of got them ready. But there might be interruptions from children.
You might be able to hear my daughter crying in the background, actually. So.
But we wanted to sort of convey love and passion for music. I think it's the one thing that we wanted to do. We're going to go on to the next one.
Yeah. So let's get a snippet of song number 2. And after I played this, perhaps you can tell us what the artist is and the name of the song.
What's up, man? Hey, yo, what's going on? Sick and tired of 5 running up on the block, you know what I'm saying? Yo, so they came around looking for you the other day. Word, bust it.
You guys know this song? Do you know this?
I have to say, it was such a nice contrast to the first opener with the Pixies as well. I thought it was a great second song to choose, and something complete contrasting, which says quite a lot about your musical taste.
Yeah, so Informer, that was the first tape I ever got back in the days of cassette tapes was Snow, and the album was called 12 Inches of Snow. So the song Informer was like the most famous song on there. And it basically, for those that didn't know Snow, he was like Vanilla Ice, but probably a bit worse. He was kind of like a
Canadian, were they? Were they Canadian?
I actually don't know. I don't know. I thought he was American. He might have been. But he didn't. I don't remember him doing anything else. I think he was kind of like a one-hit wonder. He just did this Informer. It was really popular. And if you know, in the cassette tapes and in the CDs where they had the albums where all the words were in it as well, and you would read along.
The story and the story. You know, you find out how the album was made and who they are and what they're up to. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing. So it kind of reminded me of it was me and my brother, and we had a little cassette tape deck, and we put. Informer. I just remember us just singing to it and learning all the words. And if you play the song through, it goes really fast, and you can't understand what he's saying. But he is actually talking English. It doesn't sound like he is, and you can get all the lyrics of what he's saying in there. And I just remember kind of learning pretty much word for word. Back, this is probably when I was must have been about 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. But it was it's one of my earliest memories of kind of. Loving a song and being obsessed with a song, I think. Yeah.
That song made number 84 of the greatest all-time hip-hop songs.
Number 84.
Good facts.
Number 84. I thought it would have been higher than that.
I looked it up for you.
And that might be why only a select few people might have actually heard of that song.
Yeah. Maybe.
Massive in the 90s. Absolutely massive.
It's early 90s. Well, it was like 91, 92, something like that. Yeah.
Right, should we move on to song 3?
Yeah, sure.
So, I kind of feel I need to probably play a little bit further forward so you can get a hint at who this might be singing.
Sure was gonna be rough. They never did like Mama's homemade dress. Papa's banquet wasn't big enough. And I was standing on the side of the road, rain falling on my shoes. Heading up for the East Coast, Lord knows
I mean, you can't mistake that voice. Slightly controversial when I'm teaching my music tech students, actually, that one of the things I always say to them is that actually I really dislike Bob Dylan's voice, but there's no doubt in, controversial there.
I'm not a fan either.
No, well, you know what, he does divide opinion, but I think a prolific songwriter, and you can't deny that he made a huge, significant contribution to the music industry. So, Mr. Richards sorting a has child. Would you like to talk about that song?
Well, I've loved Bob Dylan. I've always loved Bob Dylan, but it comes from my dad, really. I mean, my dad was a huge Bob Dylan fan, so I grew up. My dad's an artist, so he used to have the album's called Blood on the Tracks, which is like Bob Dylan's probably most famous album. And he used to have that album playing all the time when I was growing up in his studio, just literally on repeat. And Tangled Up in Blues, the song there, and that's kind of stuck with me as a kind of the main song on the album. There's a few other greats, but you're right. He's not. I saw Bob Dylan in concert, and he's he's not a great singer. I mean, he's not a great singer at all. He was rubbish in concert, but it's his songwriting. I mean, if you listen to the words and the way he puts together a story and he visualizes a story, that's what he's really strong at. So you kind of have to get past, I think, the voice a little bit. I don't mind his voice being a little bit kind of rubbish sometimes and edgy. I kind of like the fact that it's not perfect.
It's certainly raw, and it's got that.
It's raw, yeah, I like that.
Really, really husky sort of tone to it as well. Have you seen? There's a snippet of him doing his take for. I think it was one of the Feed the World collaborative songs, and it's about 10 minutes of him trying to hit the note that he was meant to hit because he kept hitting it. And Stevie Wonder's in the studio on the piano, and he like, what's going on? What is going on, Bob Dylan? If you've not seen it, it's worth going.
Okay.
But
no, not a great voice. I mean, but his lyrics, he's a songwriter, and his songs have been copied a lot, haven't they, by a lot of other people? I mean, Adele sang, what was that one song he came up with? Adele did it brilliantly, but yeah, it's very simple memory for me. It reminds me of my dad, really, more than anything else. But yeah.
So you've picked 3 tracks there that remind you of like being young. What stands out for you when you were growing up in South Africa? Those sort of early formative years of Mr. Wareing.
What do you mean, song wise?
Well, song wise, anything wise. What are your sort of memories of that time? So you got in the car with the windows down, listen to those tracks. You've got your dad working away in his. What was it like growing up in South Africa? What was school like?
You know what? I mean, from what other people around the world kind of were probably seeing of South Africa at that time, I wasn't seeing any of that. I was living quite a good lifestyle in a nice house on the beach. I was hanging out with my friends. I was going to the beach on the weekend. I was listening to a lot of music. I was playing guitar. I've got really happy memories of that time. I've got no, it was just a very relaxed, laid back kind of lifestyle on the beach, going to the beach a lot, wandering around. Kind of the thing I did kind of write down was that I think we had a lot of freedom. I think for us, I remember, if I compare it to now that I've got kids now, raising them around here in England, how it doesn't feel like they have as much freedom as we had. I mean, I literally remember with my friend just leaving the door and being gone all day, roaming around in the bush, like riding around on our bikes, just doing whatever, and not really. I don't know if it says much about my parents, but we kind of went to our own devices. Like we kind of just wandered around.
He's only 4 though, right? I think that might be. I'm not sure you were.
Okay, Ethan's 4 now. Yeah, I know. I'm sure. No, not when I was 4, but pretty like when we were about 8 or 9. We kind of we were able to. We had quite a bit of freedom, I would say. It might be the same in certain parts of England, but I feel like in South Africa there wasn't as much. I don't know, restriction. There weren't as many restrictions, maybe, in terms of like that sort of thing. But I don't know. That's just my memory of it.
What about school? What was school like?
Yeah, I mean, my school. I went to a school. So I went to a school called Margate Primary. So a town called Margate, with a town called Ramsgate down the road from it. So in South Africa, we were very imaginative with the names. They literally just took on the east coast of England. They just took it down to the east coast of South Africa, and they had Margate and Ramsgate, literally the same distance apart from each other. So I grew up in Margate. Went to primary school. Yeah, it was like a big. It was a big school. It was like a state school, government school, we called them. It was all right. It was big class sizes. It was kind of now teaching at Clare's Court. It was very different experience, I think, to Clare's Court. Me going to school there. There was a lot of sports. In South Africa, rugby, cricket, tennis, football. Sport was really big. But again, it was a lot of kind of walking to school, being outdoors a lot. It was kind of South Africa's. It's a very consistent climate where I grew up in Durban. You don't really get a winter, so I just remember being outdoors a lot. Really, that was kind of a lot of my memories.
Can I just pick up on something that backtrack a bit earlier in that little debrief you just given us there about early years, formative years? You mentioned about the fact that you play guitar. Now, for a lot of people, obviously, certainly those that are at the senior girls side and Mr. Richards and I are aware that you play the guitar, but maybe a lot of people don't know. So, how long have you been playing the guitar for?
Since maybe when I was about 13 or 14 years old, something like that. So my mother is a pharmacist, but she's also a part-time folk musician. So that's I had a very bohemian upbringing. Hey,
You had to have Dylan in your.
yeah. I had to. So my parents used to listen to like Janis Joplin, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Donovan. It was that kind of folky, hippie household. My dad was an artist. My mom was a folk musician. That kind of. It was very much a very hippie kind of household, bohemian. So I learned. So I mean, all this art and music was around me. So it was just kind of natural. But yeah, I started playing guitar when I was like 13 or 14, and then got an electric guitar when I was about, I think 15, 16. And I've still got it and still got my acoustic. So yeah, it's very much a hobby though. I'm not like, I did have dreams of being in a band and being a musician, like I'm sure all of us did at some point. Dan, I'm sure you, obviously. Steve as well.
Well, have you heard? He's been playing guitar for what, a year and a half now? Maybe a year and a half. Let's go a year. Unfortunately, the girls haven't had a chance to hear you yet, have they?
Good.
So, maybe we'll have to get you to record a live performance and distribute it to all of the boys and the girls' sites. What do you think?
Could do, yeah.
We could do that, yeah. Well, you could do that.
Let me move on to the next song. So, number 4, this is Nirvana, Oh Me.
If I had the smile, if I had the touch feeling. And that was from the album MTV Unplugged in New York, wasn't it?
That's right. I mean, that album is just fantastic. That is like
that iconic album.
I mean, all the dialogue in between the songs as well, and kind of, I think if you, I was really obsessed with Kurt Cobain when I was young. I wanted to be Kurt Cobain, and I think, if you to get a sense of who he was, you got a real sense of who he was in that album and all the dialogue between the other band members and stuff. So I think, I just got a lot of love for that album, and I think "Oh Me" is a really underrated song on that album. It's sort of a great intro bit.
I did think that, actually. I did think not that it was a bad song. I just thought there's so many other Nirvana tracks that are particularly on that album that I'd probably say stand out to a lot of people more than that one.
Yeah, it's a great. And I think I was just saying, because I was learning how to play guitar at that time as well, like learning that intro bits. That and that, I think that's why I kind of just struck a chord with me, that intro.
I think what that album did was it sort of made sort of rock music, grunge music, like acceptable, and all of my mates had that album. Like everybody listened to that. Like whether they had Nirvana Bleach or Nirvana Nevermind or whatever, they all had that one because it was for everyone. It was sort of universal, I think, that.
Yeah, it wasn't as heavy. It was toned down. He had a David Bowie song on there as well. It was kind of, it was good. It was
The Man Who Sold the World. Is that one?
The Man Who Sold the World. Yeah. It was it just kind of it was just that album was just. I just got a lot of love for that album. I think. I mean, I could pick any song on that album. Really, there's so many.
When was that? That was mid-90s. Was it about 95?
So Kurt Cobain died in 94. And I'm pretty sure that was their last album. So it might have been 93 or something, but I think it might have been released
at that time, weren't you?
Hey?
Still in South Africa at that time.
Oh yeah. We had a lot of American influence in South Africa. We didn't get a lot of British bands. We got Oasis. I remember Spice Girls and Oasis and Blur. That was about it.
I've noticed Spice Girls haven't appeared on your playlist this week.
No, I know. Yeah. Yeah, if I was being honest, they would have been on there. But
you just didn't want to, you just putting it on there. I'm sure there are others that would put Spice Girls on the list.
Yeah,
you can't deny the impact they had.
They were big, but we didn't get a lot of British bands. We got we only got the like really famous ones, but we didn't get a lot of the smaller kind of bands. So when I came over to England, I learned a lot about English music.
So when you came over to the UK?
2000, or was it 2001? Let me think. 2001. So I don't know what was happening at that. I remember sort of Linkin Park maybe was big then. I I sort of remember listening to them a lot when I came over, and then Papa Roach as well. Yeah. I remember going to a Papa Roach concert. That was good.
Did you?
Yeah. When I first came to London, actually, that was one of the, because they would have never toured in South Africa, Papa Roach, and to come over and see them was amazing. I still remember it. It was brilliant. Like, it was one of the best gigs I've been to.
What is the best gig you've ever been to?
Probably that. I don't know. Maybe.
What is the best gig you've ever been to?
Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah.
I've been to so many, and there's so many that I would say for many different reasons. I don't know whether you guys know, but one of my favourite artists at the moment is a guy called Corey Henry. He's a keys player, and he's just a crazy musician. I saw him at the Roundhouse last year. That was a pretty epic gig. But I have to say, probably one of the best gigs I've ever been to was Lionel Richie. 2 rows in the front. Yeah. And I remember, and I tell you why, because
on the ceiling.
I tell you why it was one of my favourite gigs, was because I had so much respect for the amount of power and control that guy had as a vocalist, because his microphone was all the way down here, and he was absolutely belting and filling the stage. It was at Wembley. So that, for a very different reason, just for pure technique as a singer, it was. I've always looked up. And I always listen out for people that have really good control and technique of their vocals. Lionel, just at that time, it was just amazing. What about you, Mr. Richards?
After I asked you the question, I knew it would come back to me. Same reason, but same thing. Loads and loads of gigs. It's hard to nail anyone down. I don't know. Probably one of the Flaming Lips gigs I've been to are probably one of the best ones to just get caught. I cried at a Flaming Lips gig.
The music moved you, right?
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Mr. Richards. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
There's no combination of words I could put on the back of a postcard. No song that I could sing, but I can try for your heart. Our dreams, and they are made out of real things.
I have to say, I think this is a brilliant song for the current climate and the times that we're in at the moment. Obviously, that's Jack Johnson, Better Together. A really, really nice pick-me-up, that one as well, actually. So if you haven't listened to that one, go and have a listen to it. It's a lovely, lovely song.
Why'd you pick that?
So, I mean, yeah, you would have thought that song or that album is appropriate for South Africa, but I started listening to it in Newquay, so it kind of... So I went to university in Manchester, and Joe and I were living together, and Joe's my wife, and we would go down to Newquay over the summer holidays, and we worked in a lot of different places, but we worked in a bar one summer, and we lived above the bar, and we sort of spent our days kind of surfing on the beach and just relaxing on the beach, and then we worked all night in the bar. But that was kind of it sums up that particular summer, that Jack Johnson album. In Between Dreams. In Between Dreams is the album. I think it's In Between Dreams. Yeah. But yeah, that album. It's got a lot of songs on there. I mean, it's a bit of a soppy choice. It's kind of like me and Joe kind of together right in the beginning, and kind of better together and that sort of thing. So it's a soppy one, that one, a soppy reason. But
Stacey. So it's in Gavin and Stacey, isn't it? At the end.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a guy. I mean, it's a bit cheesy, Jack. I mean, I did like Jack Johnson. I do like some of his earlier stuff, but he started doing that Curious George stuff, and I lost him a little bit at that. But some of his earlier stuff's good.
G Love and Special Sauce. Remember them? He was with them.
Yes. Yeah. There's stuff. Yeah. He played with G Love. Donovan Frankenrider. Have you heard of him? He's good as well.
Oh, that sounds cool. Same thing.
Same sort of thing. Very like laid back, box guitar in Hawaii, kind of on the beach, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just looking at the time, we got. Sorry, say that again, Mr. Richards.
What was that?
Change the mood for the next one.
Change the mood.
Oh, what's the next one? Oh.
there's probably a lot of people listening to that trying to work out perhaps what it is. Long introduction.
If they started singing, you might have guessed it. But I mean, I was trying to rack my brain for. I mean, I chose that song. I could have chosen a few different songs, but it was Metallica really that I'm interested in at that time, because I mean, so we jumped to Better Together, but that kind of in my life that jumps further ahead. But I'm going back now to post Nirvana. So you had Nirvana, and then which was about sort of around 93, 94, and then if I jumped to like 97, then it was kind of Metallica. And I just remember my best mate, who's still my best mate now, but he's into really heavy music, and he kind of introduced me to a lot of heavy bands. Like we were listening to kind of like System of Down, Marilyn Manson, Deftones, all that kind of stuff at the time. But Metallica was the one that kind of I just remember it from that time, and I remember that album Fuel in particular. I did think about Fuel. Fuel's quite a heavy song, but I chose Fade to Black because I was learning it on guitar, and it was a song that I learned, or that I spent hours trying to crack, and I just know it so well with the picking and the metal. But it was kind of, I wanted to get a metal song in there to kind of represent a little bit of a metal phase that I went through. So yeah.
Long hair, really long hair.
Well, we weren't allowed long hair in South Africa. I would have had long hair, but yeah.
You weren't allowed long hair?
At school, no, God, no. I got suspended for my hair because my hair was down to my ear, and I got suspended from school. They were really strict in South Africa on hair.
Wow, that's imagine that hair school, eh?
You know,
it was like England in the 50s. Honestly, South Africa's like 30 years behind English education.
How did that fit with sort of learning art at 18 then, if it was quite restricted?
Do you mean at 18 when I came over here, or
at school? So the sort of equivalent of A levels. How did that fit? If it was so restrictive, how was it? How were the creative subjects taught?
Well, I think very dryly, actually. Very, very old-fashioned. Very, it was very dry. I mean, having taught art here in England and been through the education system in England, it's much more creative over here. It's much more free thinking, and I guess the music is as well. It's very conservative. South African society is very conservative, quite old-fashioned, and the teaching's like that. I mean, the curriculum's very fact-based, and art was very much like draw this. You know, people were very good at drawing, but not very good at thinking creatively. So yeah. So, hey,
I prefer teaching here.
Well, I never taught over there, but so when did you train? Did you train when you came over in 2001, or were you not quite there yet?
2002.
2002. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I did a lot. So I did a art foundation, I did a degree, then I did a PGC, and then I did a master's. So I did a lot of. I've done about 7 years of education.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was that one of your driving forces for coming to the UK? Did you know you wanted to become a teacher, or?
Well, no. I mean, it's complicated. A lot of people my age leave South Africa because of the political unrest, and there's a lot of, most people that can leave. I had a British passport, so I left because I had a passport. But I've got friends over there who are kind of stuck there because they've got South African passports and they can't leave. But it's so there was that reason initially. But then once I was here, it was to study, and it was to kind of expand and be an artist. I wanted to be an artist first, and then I realized that was a little bit. It's not quite the dream it's cracked up to be, Mr. Gravett. You might have found this with being a musician, but the dream and the reality is very different, isn't it? Being an artist, you're on your own a lot of the time. So I found there was a lot of long days in the studio making work, producing work that you would then have an exhibition. You may sell work or you may not sell work, but actually you lose that kind of interaction with people, which is probably why I like teaching, because there's a constant dialogue with people, and it's much more exciting. I think from a day-to-day basis, it's a bit more exciting, I think.
Hugely rewarding as well. I think we're all probably in it for the same reasons, and it's such a joy to be able to teach and share those skills and see the young people develop and develop a love for those subjects that we teach.
But I was glad that I tried to be an artist first before a teacher. because I think having that real world experience has kind of helped me, has made me a better teacher. Because if I'd just gone straight out of uni into being a teacher, I think that would have been, I don't know, I think I wouldn't have fully understood what the art world was like. You know what I mean? Like it would have.
I can hugely relate to that. I mean, I spent 2 years before I really got into teaching, working on an album, and we were in the studio every single night working on it, and it was a huge amount of work. You know, similar to what you were talking about, where you were in the studio doing your artwork. It's just a thing. A lot of these things take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you've got to persevere with it. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I've learned from those experiences.
Yeah. Well, when you said about that Bob Dylan song, I went and looked it up, so I didn't really know much about it. Yeah. It took 2 years to write that song, that Tangled Up in Blue.
2 years. Oh, okay.
The quote from him was, "It took me 10 years to live and 2 years to write."
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So,
if you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's brilliant. He tells a whole story. And the visuals. I think the good thing about Bob Dylan, he's an artist as well, but he's got a very visual way of telling a story. So actually listen to the lyrics of that song, and he like charts his. It's basically him like roaming around America and all the crazy stuff that happens to him. But it's brilliant. It's if you get past the voice, you got to get past the voice.
It be like a cubist painting, which I thought was quite interesting. He said he wanted that song to be like a cubist painting, like different angles and lots of different perspectives.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was quite cool.
That's interesting.
Have you seen Inside Llewyn Davis?
Sorry?
Have you seen Inside Llewyn Davis?
Yes, brilliant film, really good. Yeah,
the Coen Brothers film, and it's folk music, and it's like that, isn't it? It's like that story. It's that journey of a guy who can't quite make it into folk music.
Yeah, and Bob Dylan's actually
almost there.
Bob Dylan's in that movie, isn't he? At the end, where you hear the voice, and it's kind of, and it's exactly what you said. It's like someone who didn't quite make it, who kind of. But he was so talented, but he made the wrong decisions at the wrong time, and he just didn't quite make it. But
I love the Coen Brothers, and I love that film.
It's a great film. Now, everyone.
We're going to be here all night.
Yeah. We play the last song. We got time for that, or do we need to move on?
We definitely need to play the last song. The last song is an absolute.
I think there was another one.
Well, that was the Smiths, wasn't it? Should we move on to what was the other one you were?
Why'd you pick that one? Chat quickly. Why'd you pick the Smiths?
Very quickly. So in what I was saying before, in South Africa, we didn't get a lot of English music. So the Smiths, I'd never heard of the Smiths. And then I found myself at university in Manchester, and people were talking about the Smiths and the Stone Roses, and I'd never heard of them. I didn't know who they were. And it was like, what? Who are you, sort of thing. So I started listening to. But the Smiths just struck a chord with me, and people go, "Oh, they're depressing," and that. But I just love them. I just love the kind of, I don't know what it is. There's a darkness to them, but there's also kind of an uplifting bit to the music. It's like a combination of maybe slightly depressing lyrics with kind of uplifting music, which just strikes the right kind of balance for me. I don't know.
That song sums it up perfectly. I think that kind of joyous journey that we're all on.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, hasn't it?
You have to do the last song. The last song's a belter. It's my favourite on the whole list.
I think I know which one it's going.
There's no more songs on the playlist.
Oh, hang on. Is it not? Did I take it off? Yeah, I'll put it on. Kelly, innit?
This one sort of is late 90s, though. I'm sure.
Tell us about it while I cue it up, Joel. Tell us about it.
So I basically try to chart like my different musical tastes at different times. So I had grunge with Nirvana, then Metallica, and then I was on to rave and house music late 90s and 99. So it was the first time I started like going to clubs and listening to house music, and it just reminds me of being there was a club called Rockies down the road from where I lived. It was like the local club. It was like the equivalent of Smokies and Maidenhead, I guess. And they sort of like there was plastic sheeting around the dance floor. Do you know those like plastic like doors you go to?
Yeah. Exactly what you
mean. Yeah.
I feel I need to fast forward this a little bit so we can get into it, because the intro.
Yeah. I'll wait for it. Anyone who's around in the 90s will know this. I mean, this is such a tune at that time, wasn't it? It was just brilliant.
So, have you seen Trolls 2, Trolls World Tour?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
So in the new movie, there's different trolls, like from different musical genres, and it opens up with the techno trolls.
Yeah.
Okay.
My favourite trolls are the techno trolls, and they've got a Daft Punk song in there, and they said, "Oh, we've got to wait for the beat to drop, wait for the beat to drop, wait for the beat to drop," and then the DJ just kicks in the beat, and everyone goes mental.
And it's that song.
So Ren the other day was looking up the best ever beat drops on YouTube.
That is to be fair, that is a pretty good one though.
That is, yeah.
That is a very good one. What a great choice to end us on, really. That was nice.
Okay, so
the
model that we're following has got a couple of follow-up questions. So we've got 8 tracks there, and if the place was burning down, you had to run in and save one. Which one would you save?
Oh, out of all of those tracks,
which is your favourite one you'd want to keep in your isolation?
Oh, I'd probably say Pixies, Where Is My Mind? I'll go with that intro track. Yeah.
Pixies, Where Is Your Mind? Okay, cool. And you get the complete works of Shakespeare and the Bible. But what book will you take along with you?
Yeah, probably 1984, George Orwell.
Okay, why?
I read it recently. I'd never read the book until probably about 2 or 3 years ago, but I just loved it. And I think it's the sort of book that I'd probably get a lot from if I read again. I've only read it once, but there were parts of it that I thought, okay, I'll probably read that again. So yeah, it would keep me going, I guess. But I did love it. It was good. Yeah.
Luxury? What luxury would you take with you?
So luxury item. So
Yeah.
I can take a guitar then, can I? Guitar?
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah. It would definitely be a guitar. That would keep me entertained. Yeah.
Great.
Well done.
Okay. Is that it?
I guess thank you for being our first guest is a good way to end.
I didn't realise I was the first one.
You are the first one, and you will be the first one that will be going out and broadcast next week. Did we say, is it Thursday according to Mr. Wilding's schedule, Mr. Richards? Is that correct?
I think so, but we'll record as and when we can, and then we'll put out content.
Yeah.
Whether anyone wants to listen or has listened to the end, we'll.
There's 8 people out there subscribing.
If you are one of the survivors, congratulations on making it through the first episode.
We should also
recommendations
for the next person to interview as well, shouldn't we?
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
So feel free to send Mr. Richards and I your email if you've got any suggestions of who you'd like to see interviewed next. Thank you very much, Mr. Wareing, for your time this evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and you can get out of your suit and tie now.
Thanks very much. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. That was brilliant. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye.